Welcome to the Vale
Matters
Podcast, brought to you by Evesham Noticeboard Group.
We will explore topics from local politics and economy to education and events dedicated to Evesham, Pershore and Broadway.
We will also feature stories from everyday people to learn about their experiences and get a better understanding of how our community is changing.
So join us.
Let's talk about the things that matter in the Vale.
Well, hello and Happy New Year. It's 2025 and I'm really pleased to be here on the 15th podcast. There's some exciting news and I'm joined today by a very special guest who contacted us. His name is Jason Ayres. Hello, Jason.
Hello, it's
Hi.
great to be here.
Thank you for joining us in this new year.
Yes, and Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you. So, for those that don't know, Jason Ayres is an author and has had his, I think it's more than 19 books you've had published.
Yes, it's 20 now.
20, wow. And you've been an author since 2014 and you've lived in Evesham since 2017.
That's right.
So 6 years, is it 6 years
It's
now?
about 7.5 actually.
Oh, 7.5 years, yeah. So 1980 themed books that Jason writes, and if you'd like to know more, you can visit his website jasonayres.co.uk, where you can find it. You can also find him on Amazon. I mean, I was really impressed, Jason, I'm going to say, with the books that you've produced and how many people are, how well you're doing on Amazon on the list as well. So I'm going to start with some quick fire questions, if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
I think you might have listened to a few of the podcasts now, so...
Yes,
You know
so
the
I'm guessing
score.
asparagus is going to appear somewhere.
How dare you? I mean, this is about Evesham, the Vale Matters, and what matters to Evesham? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Asparagus or spaghetti hoops?
It's just funny, we were talking about spaghetti. You see, I really want to say spaghetti hoops, but I don't think anyone has ever dared not say asparagus to this question.
We've had it normally for another vegetable though. That's the first time I've thrown a tinned pasta in.
It's sort of a vegetable, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's healthy. It's got protein in it. I love spaghetti hoops. So really, it's spaghetti hoops, isn't it? But you're going to say asparagus.
I don't want to alienate everybody in the first 5 minutes, so...
So as we were looking through your books, we can see that you love time travel, and I can see the eras of 1980s, and there were some from the time bubble. Were they in the 1970s?
Yes, and some of the time bubble books go into the future as well. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, because it's time travel, isn't it?
Yeah, so I've just finished writing a book set in the 2060s, and now I'm writing one set in the 1980s. So I've gone from 40 years in the future to 40 in the past.
Real time travelling.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, pick an era and why.
Well, I guess it has to be the 1980s because that's the decade when I was a teenager. And I know it's easy for all of us as we get older to be nostalgic and think that the music was better then and the TV was better and everything else. But I honestly think that it was. And you only have to look at how popular the 1980s are. Butlins running themed weekends and all the bands from that era coming back and touring. It's anyone of my vintage loves the 80s, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely, I was brought up in the 80s as well, so Wham, Bananarama, and just the fun clothes and the freedom to express, men were wearing makeup, and Boy George was, with his hair, with ribbons in his hair, so it was quite a liberating time.
It was, and one of the things I think that was different about those times and now is that now the way we consume television and music is very different, whereas back then it was a shared experience. So everyone watched Top of the Pops at the same time on a Thursday and talked about it the next day, or Grange Hill or whatever the programme was, whereas we kind of lost that collective society that we had, now that anyone can watch and listen to whatever they want, whenever they want.
No, totally agree. But this is supposed to be quick fire.
Yes.
Questions.
Oh, are we still on the quick fire? I didn't realise.
Well, that's because it's a really interesting answer as well. And I obviously enjoyed it. So the next question is notepad or laptop? This is from a writer's perspective. What would you prefer? Because I notice you do both, don't you?
Yes. I mean, I'm quite old-fashioned in terms of, like, I've got a desk diary here with me, and I like to jot things down. But if I actually wrote my books on a notepad, it would probably take me about 5 years to write one. So for
you might have a sore hand as well.
I like jotting things down and making notes, but laptop really for most things.
And that's why Jason's got an extra keyboard with him, because I think he's broken his keyboard with his furious typing of books.
There's the A, the S and the E keys always wear out quicker. I think, but Z, X and Q are always pristine.
Why is that? I wonder why. Okay.
Yeah.
So name a recent a book that you've read recently that you enjoyed.
I've just finished reading a local book, actually, by Diana Raphael, all about her life at Hampton Ferry, where she's lived all her life, and absolutely fascinating. I love reading anything about social history, and certainly anyone who lives in Evesham for any amount of time, I'd recommend to go and read that, because it's an absolutely brilliant book.
Is it Paradise?
Yes.
Paradise Gardens or something like that. We'll put it in the link.
I had it with me. It's in the other room.
Yeah, we have got it with us. Sorry, but we will. It's Paradise and Living in Paradise.
Living in Paradise,
and it's Diane Raphael from Hampton Ferry's recent book. We actually went to her book launch, and I haven't had a chance to read it, but I am looking forward to it, because when you meet Diane, she tells some lovely stories of the history of Evesham, and when you don't come from Evesham like we don't, don't hate us, anyone, but when you don't come from the area, I've lived here 25 years now, it's lovely to meet the people who have been here all of their lives, so that's a lot of stories to tell about the past days of Evesham.
Definitely. I think she'd make a great podcast guest.
Yes, well, there you go. Maybe we'll put her on the list. So is there an author you'd like to give a shout out to? A favourite author of yours that you would like to mention?
Well, I have got a lot of favourite authors, but a lot of them go back quite a long way. So I read a lot of science fiction while I was growing up, and one of my favourite authors is John Wyndham. I don't know if you've heard of John Wyndham, but you'll have heard of some of the things that he did. So Day of the Triffids, The Midwich Cuckoos, a lot of which have been made into TV series, and they were very much sort of science fiction stories set in the real world. So it wasn't aliens and spaceships, but believable things that sort of could happen, you know, in your village or town. So I guess he'd be my favourite author of all time. Maybe leads on to where your books are. Yes. The time travel as well. But it's definitely an influence. Yeah. I'd have loved to have met him, actually, but sadly he passed on a year before I was born. So it's most of his books were sort of written in the 1950s, but they've got that sort of classic era about them. And isn't it lovely? That's why to have the books there that you can enjoy now. So I think we're gonna So I know that you like to write stories about people time travelling back in time to parts of their past lives. So if you could revisit a part of your life from the past, which would it be? Well, I think, predictably, going on what I've already said, it's going to end up in the 1980s. And particularly towards the end of the 1980s, when I left school, but I went on to a sixth form college, which to do my A-levels, and I lived in Oxford at the time, and it was probably the most wonderful year or two of my life. It was so different to school. There was the freedom. I was turning 18 and I learned to drive, and I was with this great group of friends, and we used to go out all the time, and we'd go to pubs and we'd go and see bands, and we were totally free. and it was before the era of mobile phones and the internet, and we would just, if you wanted to arrange to go somewhere with someone, you had to ring them up and speak to them from their parents, like so
Or the landline number.
Yeah, on the landline, yes. So it'd be like, hello, Mrs. Hodges, is Steve there, please? Who's calling? So it's almost like having to get through a switchboard. But
the gatekeeper,
yeah.
the mum gatekeeper. My mum did that as well. Yeah, that was good old times.
But we're very much in the moment. So one of the things I find bizarre these days is if you see people at a concert and they're all holding their phones up, watching it through their phones and recording it, whereas at those times, you were just, in the moment. You had to be there and you got fully immersed in the experience. But it was just a great time of life where everything was still ahead of us and we were just sort of living.
You were present. You could be more present because you didn't have a device to look at.
Yeah.
I know that there was an occasion recently, I was in a coffee shop and I had my phone with me and I was on my own and I was waiting for somebody and my battery went on my phone. And there wasn't anything around me, there was no newspaper, so I had to sit there without my phone because it was dead. And I thought this, taking in the world that was around me, but people started looking at me like, what is she doing?
Yeah.
Why isn't she looking at her phone or doing something? And you start to feel a bit like a psychopath, you're like, oh, I need something to look at because that's what we've been doing for so many years.
Yeah.
And it is quite funny. And so I totally agree with you about the 1980s, that time as well, and the 90s, the early 90s, because when did phones come out?
Probably mid to late 90s, same
90s.
time as the internet.
Yeah, and I avoided it for as long as I could. I think it was 2003 or 4 when I got my first phone. So yeah, I think it was a magical time not to be answerable to a phone as well. If you weren't there, you weren't there. If you weren't out, you were out. And you could enjoy the concerts because you weren't watching it through a lens.
Quite right. And we can still do that. I mean, I've weaned myself off mine, really. I kind of just use it as a phone now.
Yeah,
So...
but I'm putting myself through a New Year challenge, and that is to have a day off all devices. So, and as you know, I work in social media, so it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Kim and Gemma are probably thinking, oh no, does that mean who's going to add me an Evesham Noticeboard? But I think it's necessary for us to do. How did you find it to minimise the amount of time you were spending?
It's not that difficult, but then I do work at home as a writer and I'm probably more addicted to my laptop. So I'm constantly looking at that and social media. So I don't really use apps and things on phones. But if I'm at home, the computer's never far away. It's only when I go out, so I go out for a walk in the country or I go to the pub, then I just don't use it at all. Yeah. And quite a lot of people I sort of hang around with and have a drink with are similar. It's quite refreshing.
Yeah,
so.
That's nice. Like being back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So tell us about your journey as a writer.
Well, it's been a long one. Yeah, I've always...
Well, it doesn't feel that long that you had your first book published in 2017?
14,
sorry.
Yes. But had I...
Where's my research? Shooter. She's sacked.
Yeah, had I pursued it as a career early on, it could have been quite different. But I had a real love of writing from quite young. So I discovered it at primary school when I went to a quite an unusual primary school. It was an experimental type of school. There were a few of them set up in the 1970s. At the time, I didn't know this. I just assumed all schools were like this. So I lived in a village called Evesham, which is very similar to Evesham. It's about 35 miles away near Whitney. And the school, instead of having formal lessons where you did set things at set times, it was like a large open plan room. And this is, I don't know how to put this without it sounding crazy. You basically could do whatever you wanted.
Okay.
Or didn't want to do.
Yeah.
So there were teachers around, and some things were done. Like PE was organised, but there was certain areas. So there was like maths in one corner, English in another corner. There was an art bay, and about sort of 6 or 7 different things that you could do. But the idea was that you were allowed to do what you wanted when you wanted. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, I mean, that in some ways, I mean, I'm quite independently minded, which it may have stemmed from that. But you were meant to do, you know, a certain number of different things each week, and you would be pulled up on it because it was easy. You know, I don't fancy doing any maths. Let's go and paint a few pictures all morning, or go and play with the clay or something. But what I remember one week in particular. Handwriting and story writing was a thing, and I got hold of an exercise book one Monday morning, and I'd been watching something on the television. I don't know if it was Star Trek or Space 1999 or Blake 7 or any one of those programs that was around at the time, but I want to get to school, I want to write this story, and I just got this exercise book and created this character who was called Captain Jason, so sort of myself. It would probably be extremely plagiaristic because I was probably stealing all the storylines from Star. I just sat there all week filling out this exercise book, and I got pulled up on it at the end of the week by the teachers. Like, this is all you've done, and I'd written about 100 pages.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It was
that's
like
really impressive.
Yeah, but I didn't sort of get that much credit for it off the teacher. I'm more told off for not doing anything else. So, and it just went on from there. I was always writing stuff.
So you were quite young when you found your passion for writing. Did you read a lot as well?
Oh, absolutely tons of books. And I'm not sure if children do. I found it harder to get my children to read like I did because back then there wasn't really anything else to do in the evening. We had one television in the lounge. So you'd be, you know, go up to bed at 8 o'clock and you'd have your books. But it was encouraged through the school. So I read all of, when I was little, it was like the Mr. Men books and the Little Red Hen and all that stuff. And then it was on to Roald Dahl and Enid Blyton.
Famous Five.
Yeah, Famous Five. I sort of consumed all of those. And I just read and read and read. I used to go to the library all of the time. Now, I look at it now. If I was growing up now, would I do that? Or would I have a switch or a
device?
A device of some sort. I don't know.
But then you could be reading on a Kindle. So.
Yeah. So I read all the time. I wrote all the time. By the time I was about 14 or 15, I was writing at school. I was writing these sort of plays, which were sort of satirical, humorous stuff based around my classmates and around the teachers.
Like script writing.
Yeah. I mean, I've still got some of this stuff, and it's quite puerile for, you know, the sort of thing a 14-year-old boy who watched Blackadder and the Young Ones would write. And certainly, it was, if the teachers had ever got a hold of them, I'd have been in a lot of trouble, I would think. So it was just fun.
Yeah. And
then I kind of moved away from it because I grew up. I needed to earn a living. Could have gone to university, didn't go because I wanted to do a career, and I sort of moved away from writing. I still did bits and pieces because I was in various sports clubs, and I'd write an article for the monthly newsletter, that type of thing. But it wasn't till years later, because I had a long career in market research, and when that came to an end, I did a few other things, and I started writing again. That was when blogging was a thing.
Yeah.
And I started writing a few magazine articles, bits and pieces, and I got a full-time column in the Oxford Mail every week for a year or two, which was great. And then the whole ebook revolution came along, and I was like, I want to write some stories again. And I thought about, should I, go down the trying to get a publisher route, but I could see that the world was changing. YouTube was coming along, ebooks, and it's like, you don't need to go to the traditional gatekeepers anymore or get someone's approval. I could do all this myself.
Right. Okay. So you didn't go to a publishing company?
No, I never approached one. I spoke to a lot of people, bookshops and authors, and they were all like, if you want to be taken seriously as a writer, you've got to have a publisher, and it was very much, self-published work is rubbish. You'll never get any respect. And of course, me being me, that was almost like a red rag to a bull, really.
Yeah.
I got almost thrown out of one bookshop because the owner didn't approve of people doing that. And I said, right, okay, I'm going to do it. So I did, and I published my first book in 2014, and it did much better than I had no idea. I didn't know if anyone would buy it.
Yeah,
And
scary world.
you know, it went really well, and so I wrote another one, and then I realised I wasn't just a writer; I was also a publisher, because I just took on the role of all the things that publishers do. So hired editors, proofreaders, cover designers, learned how to format things, and and produce Kindle, paperback, audiobook, and it just grew into really a writing and a publishing business. So in theory, as a publisher, I could publish for other people.
Nice.
But I'm so busy writing my own books.
Yeah.
I haven't done that, but I've learned the business over 10 years, and it's it's great. I can't imagine doing anything else.
Well, you're an entrepreneur as well, aren't
Yeah.
you? If you've set up a business to take it on yourself basically and self-publish in a professional way though. So I think that's probably why they were nervous of self-publish, because they don't have an editor, maybe they don't have proofreaders or book designers, but the fact that you've outsourced it and you've learnt your skills, this is what I'm good at, writing the books, but I'm also good at delegating the jobs that need doing. So it's really impressive. And now, so how many books in total have you published?
20.
20.
Yeah, and I'm producing about 2 or 3 a year on average now. But yes, there is a huge amount to it. And one of my main goals is I want to make my books indistinguishable from something that's been professionally published. So if somebody sees it online or anywhere, they won't be able to tell it's self-published.
So you're an independent book publisher, like you have an independent shop in Evesham, you have a family run or an independent business. You're an independent business as well, but you're an independent publisher, which is there can't be many people out there.
There's a few of us. Everybody's at a different level.
Yeah.
Like with any business. So there are people, some people are just happy to write something, put it up there, and it's not a commercial venture. They just get the joy from doing that. Yeah. Then there are people like me who are kind of making a modest living, as if I was doing any other sort of full-time job. Yeah. But there are some who are in the stratosphere. Yeah. They're earning, there's some people, certainly 6 figures, £250,000 pounds a year from self-publishing, which is amazing. Yeah. And it's a huge business, and it's not just Kindle books. You can like my paperbacks, you can get them anywhere. Independent bookshops, Waterstones, and a lot if they don't have them in stock. A lot of this stuff is now done print on demand. So if somebody walked into an independent bookshop somewhere and just wanted one copy of my book, they could order one, and it will be sort of produced and sent to the store. You don't have to order a box of 500 books anymore. So
do they go to libraries as well?
Yes, yeah. So you could go into a library and request one.
Is there one in Evesham Library, do you know?
Not that I know of. I thought about going in there and ordering it, but then I thought that would be a bit, I don't know, it didn't seem quite right. A bit dishonest.
Oh, but our local author should have his books available.
Yes.
In our local library.
Yes. There's nowhere here that the nearest bookshop I know that have them is an independent place in Worcester called Script Haven that keep them in stock. But yeah. Excellent. And occasionally I give away a few copies. When I get a new book, I might put a couple, say, on Morrison's book table or in one of the charity shops. So the charity shop along here, is it the St Richard's that's got the fantastic bookstore downstairs?
Yes, it's amazing.
So I probably
got the cellar, hasn't it, downstairs?
should maybe give them a couple of copies, and
Yes.
and then go back 6 months later and be disillusioned when they're still on the shelf and
Don't
nobody
be
wants
daft.
them.
Don't be daft. Listen, you're working this as a job as well. You
Yeah.
know, you've made it a career.
Yeah.
And you've made it a sustainable living for you and
Yeah.
your family. And there's not many authors that can do that. In fact, there's people probably listening to this, if there's many listeners, that is, who are thinking, and that's going to inspire people
Yes.
to think, you know, I'd love to be in that position that, you know, they think it's unachievable, like to become an author, to have their own books is quite a high target to have. So to hear somebody who's done it
Yeah.
for themselves from the ground up and learnt the process is an inspiration. And I'm sure that if there is people listening, they can reach out to you. And I know we've spoken in the past that you'd
Yeah.
like to share your creative knowledge and the things that you've done to help others.
Yeah, I'm always happy to have a chat with anyone who is interested in doing this. I can't pretend it's easy. There are a lot of hoops to jump through, and
A lot of keyboards to buy.
but yeah, but it is doable.
Yeah.
If you've got something that you feel passionate you want to write about, and it's something that you can find a market for, that people want to read and want to buy, I would say go for it. You know, you don't have to give up your day job.
Yeah.
It's something you could do in the evenings, and you know, if you like, even if you sat down and just wrote 500 words
Yeah.
every evening, it's in 4 or 5 months you've written a book.
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound that long.
No.
It sounds like it should take longer. So can you give us a typical day? What's a typical day for Jason, the author?
Well, I suppose a typical week might be a better way of describing
Yes.
it. So I've got I try and load my work to the beginning of the week. So I have this sort of work ethic that first thing Monday morning, as soon as the children are off to school, I'm at my desk and I'm writing. And I've normally prepared for that. So Monday and Tuesday tend to be intense writing days. That's right. I'm like, right, I've got to write X thousand words and develop the plot forward this far. So if I've done that, then the next day, maybe the rest of Tuesday or Wednesday, is all about editing. So I edit as I go along. I go back over the sort of previous 2-3 weeks. It's a sort of rolling process, and that works much better for me than writing the whole thing and then trying to do a full edit from the beginning. I find it's more consistent that way. You pick up little inconsistencies between chapters, and then the whole of the rest of the week is taken up with all of the other stuff. So that's what I was talking about earlier. If I'm liaising with other people that I contract out to do things for me, there's all the social media and the marketing and the advertising and interacting with people, and there's a lot of that. You know, advertising books on Facebook or Amazon and using keywords, and as you know, someone who works in social media, it's a very complex process.
And every industry has its own complexities. So your
Yes.
industry of marketing books is completely different to marketing a local business. And you have to understand that well to market it. It's not as simple as just putting a Facebook post out, is it? It's a lot more complex.
No, because if you're a local business in Evesham, you can target people in the local area, but I'm selling to people all over the world.
Yeah.
Though I feel like a local business, because I am a one-man band.
Yeah.
And I live in Evesham. I'd spend most of my time here. I get out into the community, I meet people socially, and it's strange. I'm a small business, but I'm also worldwide.
Well, that leads me, because that's just answered some of my next question, which is tell us a little bit about yourself and a bit about your background as well.
Yes. Well, actually, as I said, I've been here 8 years. I've already sort of given you quite a grounding into my school years, and I went into market research in a big company, Nielsen, who a lot of people will have heard of, the biggest market research company in the world. And I was with them for 15 years. A small fish in a very big pond. I never was completely happy with that. I don't think that I work so well in a big organisation. And whilst it was a good career, I eventually I moved on from it. And then I did a lot of other things. I had various jobs. I did sort of temporary contracts doing market research things. And I was doing other things. My kids came along. So I was looking after them a lot of the time. I was doing bits of DJing.
Oh wow, DJing as well. There you go.
DJing, presenting. That period where I spoke about for the Oxford Mail and doing magazine articles, and I was looking after kids in a day, and
you have to earn an income as well, don't you?
I DJ'd in a club a couple of nights. I ran pub quizzes. I ran karaoke nights. I did
fun stuff. You did fun jobs.
Weddings.
That is fun.
It was like, I've got to bring up the children.
What was your DJ name? Sorry.
I didn't have one.
Was it not DJ
Jace? It just sounds cheesy. So there was another DJ I worked with. I won't tell you his full name, but he called himself Funky Mike, and I just. He's probably not listening to this, but he still is Funky Mike, and he's still doing it back in Oxfordshire. But
was he Jazzy Jason?
yeah, because you get that all the time, don't you? So no, I just
Kick it, Katie. That would be my name.
Yeah.
So you've moved to Evesham in 2017. And what made you choose Evesham for where you?
Well, I decided I wanted to move on for some time. And the kids were getting older. I wanted to find a nice place for them to grow up. And I'd sold one house and I was supposed to be buying another. It's a long, convoluted story. The sale of the other one fell through. Ended up in private rented accommodation for a while. House prices where I was were going through the roof. And I figured, now I'm earning from being a writer. My DJ business, I had to stay where I was. But I don't have to do that now. I can go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I started looking around the country, and it's just a couple of years process. I looked up north, and must have looked at 10, 12 different towns. Wow. And then one day, about 8 years ago, just thought, let's go and have a look at Evesham, and sort of came here one Sunday and wandered around Abbey Park, and wow, this is really nice. Yeah. And the house prices here were a lot more reasonable than where we were. And it just so happened that we found a house that day that was for sale, and it's like, this just ticks all the boxes. And it was one of these things we've been looking for a year or two, but as it often is in life with a job or a career or anything, sometimes everything just falls into place. And it just, that day, we knew this is where we want to be. And it took ages to get it through, but we finally moved in right at the end of August. And my oldest son was just about to go into year 6. So 2 days after we got here, he started with the rest of the new starters at TDMS.
Oh, right,
so he
yes.
timed
Good
it perfectly.
timing. Yeah, because it's a middle school here, which is not the same as the
Yes, because where we were, you did in Oxfordshire, it starts in year 7. Yeah. So he was able to come in with all the other new starters without it being a big jolt for him.
Yes.
Well, my younger son went to St Richard's for 3 years and he loved it there.
Yeah.
So they're both very settled and happy, and I am too. I've really enjoyed living here. Made some great friends. I've got a great local pub.
Yeah, the Red Lion.
Yeah,
we have to mention that.
Put a shout in for the Red Lion. It's
Chantal and Tom, a good bar staff there as well, and the musicians. It's a creative pub, isn't it?
There's music of some sort on there nearly every night of the week. So.
Yeah, nice plug there.
Yeah.
But it's a lovely town, isn't it? And it's lovely to hear why you moved here. Yeah. And how you looked around the country. Yeah. And you chose our town. Yeah. Well, I say our town. It's not my town. It's I've been here 25 years, but it's nice. It's lovely to hear that people choose to move here as well, like I did. Yeah. And you know, and the Abbey is beautiful, isn't it? And the park and the festivals and the schools and...
Yeah, I think the river is the thing that really benefits it as well, because where I lived before, they were concreting over and building estates everywhere. But when you've got a river, you've got quite a large area of sort of, you know, you can't build a housing estate on Abbey Park, because it'll just get flooded.
Yeah.
So it helps to preserve that,
Yeah.
you know, that history.
Yeah, it's one of the things that attracted us when we visited Evesham as well, was the river and that setting. So I'm going to ask you, because some of you listeners won't know, but the surprise that we have is that Jason is going to be the Vale Matters new podcast host.
Yes.
Is that right? He didn't know.
What,
you
really?
know now.
This is the first I've heard of it.
Congratulations. There you go. You can take over now.
Yeah.
So we're really happy, Jason, because we can see by your books and your passion for the town, and that you know that you're part of the community, and so we're really pleased. And I don't know what you envision. Do you have a vision of guests and type of podcasts? What would you like to see the future? Because this is an opportunity for the Vale Matters to be steered now into a new path, because I've been doing it for 2 years. And I've really enjoyed it, but it's now time to hand it over. Yes.
Well, I mean, what you've been doing is great, and I certainly want to continue on with that. I'd like to...
I had no training. I'm just going to say that now.
You know.
I think that might be obvious, actually.
Well, I have run podcasts before and guested on quite a few, so it's something I enjoy doing. So when I heard you were looking for someone, that's why I applied. And... you know, I think there's a lot we can do with it. There are so many. I mean, you've interviewed many already, but barely scratched the surface, because there are so many local businesses, charities, organisations, clubs out there, which, you know, I'd like to hear about. Because I've learned stuff from these podcasts about organisations I didn't even know existed. So
that's nice to hear.
The one you most recently did on the U3A was fascinating. They're just so much stuff just even within that, and I'm keen, you know, people come on and talk about what they do, and you know, it's great opportunity for anyone to showcase what they do. So I'd say, you know, come to us. You can apply via the Evesham Noticeboard or contact me directly, and yes, I'd like to hear about what you do, but I want to hear about the people behind it as well.
Yes.
I want to know what, you know, I want them to tell their stories. How, you know, if you're doing this, how did you come to do this? And just, you know, come and talk about your lives and tell us who you are.
This is what you do for a living, tell stories.
Yeah.
So to help others share theirs is an art, I feel. And
Yes.
I find it, you know, like I said, I've done it for 2 years, but it's not it wasn't a natural conversation for me to have. But I have really enjoyed it. And I may pop in. You may see me in the background while you're doing the podcast, because I'm only next door. But we're really pleased that you've got the new podcast.
Well, that's very good.
Of 2025.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. However,
so that's it then, isn't it?
It's not.
Thanks,
quite,
Jason.
No, I'm afraid it's not, because I'm going to spring a
So
surprise
the next episode.
I'm going to spring a surprise on you now.
Oh,
so
no.
if I am taking over, you've been doing the podcast for a couple of years,
Lord,
and you've interviewed all these people, but nobody's interviewed you.
No,
So-
don't like being spotlight. I know people might find that hard to believe, but
So I think that my first guest should be you.
oh dear, I'm sorry about that, listeners. The viewers' numbers have just gone down.
Yeah. So I want to hear about the lady behind the podcast and behind Evesham Noticeboard, and all the other things that you do. So if you've got a bit more time, I think we should do that now.
Oh no, I have to admit I might get emotional. I do. I'm not very good at being interviewed or photographed, or it's the weird things happen to my speech, my face.
Yeah.
So I'll do my best.
Well, we are kind of filming this, but I haven't looked at the camera once, so they'll only be seeing the side of our heads. Hello. But I'm almost disappearing off the sides.
No, this is the first time I've filmed it.
Yeah.
This is the first time we thought we'd try and go with the technology world, you know, and show diversity that we can film it, but yeah, we'll see if we use it anyway.
Yeah, maybe not. Okay, so how about some quick fire questions?
Oh no!
I bet you can guess what's going to be included in the film. No, I thought this
sprouts.
This I'm not going to mention sprouts. I was glad you didn't, because I'd have had to have told you about how I used to have to smuggle them out in my pockets to avoid eating them when I was a kid.
What, eating them more?
No, from the Sunday dinner.
You used to smuggle sprouts.
Yeah, to be disposed of later.
Not for a midnight lunch.
No, definitely not.
Because
No.
I love sprouts, so that's
No. So sprouts are evil.
So I should have put that in your quick fire questions.
Yeah, I didn't mention it before, but yeah.
Well, after Christmas, I've had enough sprouts.
Indeed. This is quite local topical. So, asparagus or plums?
Oh, I like both of them.
Yeah.
That's a difficult one.
So I could almost be asking Evesham or Pershore, couldn't I?
Yeah, it has to be asparagus. It just has to be. How did I was just teasing you then. I wasn't really thinking about it. Of course it was asparagus with salmon and new potatoes.
It's compulsory to say asparagus on this pod.
Do you know, I hadn't tried asparagus. I didn't even know what it was until I moved to Evesham.
Yeah.
And it was our first week in Evesham, and it was on the front page of the Evesham Journal that a farmer had some rounds of asparagus stolen, and it made the front page, and I was thinking, what is this asparagus? You know, is it like gold or? And then, you know, the locals are like, well, it's grass. It's called grass here, which also has other meanings from where I come from in Birmingham. So I think they're eating grass. And then there's all these different ways to cook it, and some interesting facts. It can make your wee smell. I don't know if that's a topic we should be talking about. This is why you shouldn't interview these. So the quick fire question, asparagus.
Okay. So I've got three more. Pool
Okay.
or beach?
Pool or beach?
Yeah.
Oh, beach. But then it does depend on the beach, because I don't like crabs.
Oh.
And I was stung by one of those spiky fish. Can't remember what they're called.
A weaver fish.
Weaver fish. The pain.
It is.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I stood on one at Barry Island about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Random fact.
People are learning all about us. Yeah. They're not nice. So pool is difficult, because I do love a pool as well. But
Okay, a musical one. Blur or Oasis?
Oh, Oasis.
Yeah.
It has to be Oasis. I loved it from our growing up. It was Oasis and Blur were the two that had, you were either a Blur or an Oasis fan.
Yeah.
And me and my husband, because we've been together for 35 years.
Wow.
We were both. And that was a bit controversial at the time. We liked both of them. So, but more Oasis, because I've seen them, and, I love them.
Excellent. Well, speaking of controversial,
Yeah.
Marmite, yes or no?
Definitely yes.
Yes!
Definitely
We're on the same team.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Marmite on toast.
Oh,
and
can't
you
beat
can cook
it.
with it as well, with beef
Yeah.
and stews and stuff, a teaspoon
Yeah.
of Marmite. It's lovely.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's the quick fire questions.
Oh, God.
We've got a few more. Now, this
I
is...
thought that was done then.
So this next one is a question I used to ask on my old time travel podcast. So I thought I would resurrect this. If you could step into the shoes of anyone else for a day, past or present, real or fictional, who would you choose?
My word, that is a difficult question.
Especially when you can only choose one.
Yes. And it can be fictional.
Yeah.
So if it's fictional, anyone who knows me isn't going to be surprised, but it may sound a bit strange, but Del Boy.
Really?
Because as a fictional character,
Yeah.
well, the story writing is amazing.
Yeah.
For Only Fools and Horses, so I'm in love with Only Fools and Horses. but I'd love to meet David Jason. But it's Del Boy that I love.
Yeah.
It's that character, and it's because he was a real hard-trying entrepreneur, you know, who had a heart of gold, and had so much empathy, but was so funny, and he could turn the saddest situation in that comedy sketch where Raquel's just lost the baby.
Yeah.
Into something that 1 minute you're crying, and the next minute you're laughing, because he could bring your spirit up.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
they were
Del Boy.
Yeah, they were wonderful.
Yeah.
And a great staple of Christmas Day television back in those days
Yeah,
as well.
I watch him on repeat,
Yeah.
and I love Rodney. I've got my own Rodney, my brother Chris. He's our Rodney in the family, and you know, and I just love that. Go, keep trying, you know. This time next year,
Yeah.
Rodney will be millionaires. You know that. And, you know, maybe that says something about me not being a good entrepreneur. It's been claimed I'm not a good entrepreneur, but I try, you know, and I love that, you know, and I love the family connection that he has with his brother and his wife and the family. And yeah, it's such a heartwarming character. So I'd love to be on that set for a day.
Wonderful, yeah.
Being Del Boy.
Yeah.
With the jacket, of course.
Yeah.
Some watches inside.
Yeah. Oh, great answer. Yeah, I think I'll keep that question in for future guests. So if you're listening, I might ask you. Okay, so let's talk a bit more about you and what you do. So we talked about you running the business. So you run the Evesham Noticeboard page and website, and have been doing for several years now. So how did this come about, and what inspired you to create it, and how's that journey gone?
Yeah, I mean, I've since I moved to Evesham in the year 2000, I discovered that Evesham was a type of town that you could start a business. Unlike Birmingham, where I worked on Colmore Road for an advertising agency in a creatives department, and that was great, and I was being directed by people. But when I moved to Evesham, I realised this small town, I could start my own graphic design business and become part of, and I felt so welcomed by members of the community. Like you said, you know, you find, you know, you go out and you meet people, and I just felt so welcome in Evesham that I started a business on Port Street, and I was very lucky. I had a landlord opposite the Swan Inn at the top of Port Street, and it was called Katie Design and Print. Very says what it does on the tin sort of name, because I knew I was a small business, and the rent was only £50 a month or so. It was ridiculous, you know, it was really cheap, and so I set up a business, my first business on Port Street, and then the community and being part of that in a town for me meant so much. You know, I didn't ever think I'd own my own business. I thought I'd always be working for other companies. So that sort of gave me the opportunity to set up other businesses. So I then moved the business to the printed clothing company, which some people might know. And then I also expanded to Adam and Eve's, which was controversial, the adult shop. And so I had these couple of businesses, and I also then did a couple of festivals, medieval festivals in Workman Gardens. So I'd met and made a lot of connections in Evesham and learnt a lot about the town, and spent, you know, 10 years before Facebook had even come about. Well, it had, but I wasn't on that boat at the time. I was behind, you know. Like I said, I didn't even get a phone until 2003. So, you know, so I'd made all these connections with people, and that then led when Facebook did start. And, you know, I was using it, and we could see that there were groups popping up that I wanted to provide a platform that was a group that provided trustworthy information, because as we know, social media can share lots of myths and lots of, you know, untruths, and cause a lot of harm to businesses, to individuals, and it can do a lot of great as well. So I just wanted to share that passion that I had for Evesham and showcase it and say, look, here's a group for you here's a group for us all that we can use to signpost people who need help. Say, you know, if they want to know where the nearest food bank is, or we'll share where the food bank is, or if they're looking for a hairdresser locally, or, you know. And so it was a group, and from the other groups I'd seen, you know, they had their banter and they had their politics, and sometimes you just want to switch off from it, you know. You just don't want that. You just want some general news of what's happening this weekend in the town. So the Facebook group gave me that opportunity to do that, and I didn't really expect it to grow. I thought it was just going to have a couple of hundred members. I didn't think we'd be sitting there, you know, 10 years later with 43,000 members and over 1 million views in the last 60 days in a group, over 1 million. So because it's a public group, and as it developed, it just became more and more to manage, and so we had a team. We've got other admins like most Facebook groups have, but we were lucky that we were recognised by Meta, and we were put on a cohort to monetize our group to make it sustainable, because as we all know, we can't sit and admin groups and manage this, and because of my mission was to provide a trusted platform of information to a community, it needed managing. So to do that, it had to become a business and it had to become a job. But I really love what I do. I really enjoy it, and I love that we can do both sides of. I can still be a business owner and I'm still part of the community, and I can help small businesses, especially independent businesses, and they help me as well. You know, it's a two-way thing. But also that we can provide free support and marketing and all these tools to charities, not-for-profits and groups, and also individuals who are looking for help. So that was a long answer.
No,
there's so much to say about it.
I didn't want to interrupt because it would.
People have got to sleep. Sorry about that.
No, it certainly, as someone who came here 7 or so years ago, I found it an invaluable source of information. And like you say, there are many groups
That's
on
nice
Facebook.
To hear.
So I don't know how many spotted groups there are in each.
Yeah.
They've all got slightly different names.
Yeah.
But of course, you've got the website as well.
Yes.
So
so we've got
Evesham
Noticeboard.co.uk. So we started a directory 3 years ago, along with the podcast and the awards night. So it's become, and a newsletter that happens monthly. And there's you know there's a lot that goes into creating what we do, and it's not just happened. I haven't just monetized something. It took a year with Meta and with a business developer, and with my own knowledge and advice and support from my peers and my family and people around me to help it grow to where it is, and still growing as a business and a support for the community as well. I hope that's not my phone.
I can hear something fuzzy. It's probably mine, but
don't worry.
I don't think it'll come out on
That's
here.
someone calling saying it's been going on too long.
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple more questions actually. You mentioned the awards ceremony, which I came to recently with the Red Lion crew.
Yes.
And it was a great night. So and you've done that for a couple of years now.
That was the second year.
Yeah. So how did that come about? And I imagine it's a lot of work organising something like that.
It's huge. It's a huge task, and but it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. I think I'm a great believer in giving recognition to people. I don't like it myself at all. And that's why at some of the awards night, when some people did say something about myself, I don't like that. I love seeing, and I think there's so many people out there that deserve this recognition. So the reason was there was nothing like it in Evesham and we have so many community people that do so much work, and the Evesham anti-litter team. And, all these volunteers that go out and make Evesham. Why I love it. This is why I love Evesham, because we can see a community. And when you've lived in other towns and you come to Evesham, I think you realise, actually, we are very lucky, and we're very rich in these people that dedicate their own time, a lot of time for free, to make our town a better place to live. You can love or hate Evesham, but at the end of the day, you can't hate the people who are trying, and so to give them that, you know, and it wasn't me giving that. That's the community who votes for them. It's the community who are saying thank you. It's the community who said that to them, and then to independent businesses. When you, like yourself, been in business and it's hard. You know, it's hard, and you know, so to have that, the PR from winning an award, the recognition as well of being an established or a family business, or, you know, we've seen how much it meant to these people. And, you know, the evening was, you know, the only one of the issues I had were I had some technical issues on the night.
Yeah, I do remember.
Because I'm not a trained host. I'm learning everything as I go along. But the other complaint is that we need to put tissues on the table because people were finding it quite an emotional evening. And that was I don't want to make people cry, but it was for the right reasons, I think. So it was lovely. I really, really enjoy it. And it's something that's going to happen every year, I'm determined. We might be looking for a new host for that, though.
Well, we'll see how this year goes. Yeah, no, you're quite right about the community. There's a better sense of community here than anywhere else I've ever lived. And even if they don't always get on, but at least that is better than nothing.
Yes.
Because society, you know, we talked about people using their phones earlier, and people are, I feel, can get quite isolated, or society is pushing us more to not interact with each other as much.
Yes.
So community events are a great way of keeping it alive.
Yeah, and social media platforms are really good at connecting people. So some of the times we'll film the Christmas light switch on or the Battle of Evesham event live. So we'll go there and we'll do a live stream into Evesham Noticeboard. And that's not because we're trying to show the people who have been there what it was like. It's because we know there are people who are at home, who can't make it, for whatever reason, mobility reasons, or isolation, like you said. And so the feedback we've had from doing those from people is, thank you so much. It felt like I was there, and I've seen the lights every year, but I couldn't go this year, so that was lovely to be able to watch. Or people who've moved away from the area and are still their heart still lives here. Yeah. So it's a community is strong in this town. It's not to be underestimated, you know. And like I said, not everyone gets on, and that's okay. It's okay to have, you know, for us to not agree on everything.
Yes, well, if everyone agreed on everything, the world would be quite a dull place.
Yeah, exactly. So, we'd all be walking around La La Land.
So, I've got one more question, and it's moving on from what we were just talking about. With your deep involvement in the community, what would you say is the most important thing that the people of Evesham can do to support their local businesses, charities and organisations?
Well, the thing that started with the Evesham Noticeboard was the hashtag Keep It Local Evesham. So that's to encourage us to shop local, you know, to try and use your independent businesses as much as possible. And, you know, I'm not saying I don't go to Amazon and I don't shop online. Of course I do sometimes, but I do also try to use the local businesses where I can. And that isn't just independent businesses, that's nationals as well, because there's people who are local who work in these stores in Iceland, in Greggs, in Marks and Spencer's. There's locals that work there. So I support all of these independent businesses. And so my, you know, one of the first things is to keep it local. And the second thing which we would, which I think would be great, is if more people could leave reviews for businesses, and that could be on online, it could be to the actual business owner, you know, to the people who work there. Say thank you, you know, say that was a lovely meal, or go online and tell people you enjoyed this experience. And if you're a visitor and you've been to Evesham and you're listening to this, then please go to TripAdvisor and say what you thought of Evesham, because people are looking at our town and our reputation is so important to the sustainability, the future, the economy. So we need we need people to leave Evesham itself a good review.
Yes. Yeah, and you know, not just reviews. I mean, rating. Not everyone wants to write something. Just, you know, can rate something.
Yeah.
Like something. Follow someone.
Yes.
You know, all of that. Like with this podcast,
Yes.
follow the podcast, and that helps us grow.
Yes.
And that's I definitely would agree with that. So
Yeah, no, I think it's like you're definitely spot on there. I forgot that. Like their social media pages, like Evesham Noticeboard,
Yeah.
like the Vale Matters podcast. But and you know, and if you can go online, you know, leave a review. If you're looking for something local, don't forget, guys, you've got eveshamnoticeboard.co.uk as a directory where we've got all the charities and not-for-profits. Or they should be. Most of them are on there, but we've also got a what's on page. And if you're new to the area, and we've got all the guides, if you're, you know, if you've got pets or if you're getting married or, you know, I mean, there's a guide, our copywriter Gemma has created so many guides now, even guides to schools, you know. So use local, keep it local is and leave reviews.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. So that's brilliant. Thank you. It's been really interesting talking to you.
Thank you, Jason.
And
thank you for taking on the role, and thank you for those questions. Not. That wasn't supposed to happen, you know.
No, well, I couldn't let you go that easy.
No, it's been a pleasure, and thank you to all the listeners. I mean, there might be a time where I'm back on again, or have I lost my job now, Jason? Should I just close the door behind me? But no, thank you to all the listeners.
Yes,
and
please like and follow, and do come on the podcast. Get in touch with us.
Yes.
And you could be on next.
Thank you.
All right, thanks then. Bye,
Cheers.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.